After a while, the camera gets more into the usual perspectives because they can move the camera. But for an actor, how is it you have to act so much into the camera, which is you're not used to usually? Is it on? No.
I don't have any projection. The question was regarding the found footage style shooting. I found that particularly challenging, more than anything, because you'll often have a scene that will go, for 2 minutes or 3 minutes at times, and you have to sort of hit different, there's the arc of the scene that you've got to worry about, and you want to be truthful, and you've got to do it all with no cuts. There's no cuts to hide behind, And so, in a way, it's kind of like theatre, but in terms of the consistency that you have to have. So I found that to be quite challenging, and I think that married with then having the special effects and wire work and all that sort of stuff, coupled with the found footage thing, was a huge challenge for me.
Yeah, and it works very good because you believe it. I mean, it's so hard, I think, to transport this story, and it really works, and it's kind of touchy. And how much did you improvise during the shooting? Also with the camera work, and so how much is really planned, and how much just happens?
You'd be surprised how much we actually stuck true to the script. Max Landis is a fantastic writer, and he writes dialogue exceptionally well and very naturalistically, and perfect for this type of this style of storytelling. So we had the freedom to improvise, and we would often improvise at the beginning of a scene leading up to the dialogue, and then usually once we got into the dialogue, I would say 99 or maybe like 95% of the dialogue that's spoken in the film is as it's written on the page, and that's because what's written on the page is exactly what is needed to be conveyed in the scene in the first place. You don't, it's if it ain't broke, don't fix it type thing. We didn't have to kind of paraphrase or change things around because it was just so well laid out. So it's all in the writing in the end, I guess. And in terms of things looking naturalistic and having an improvised feel to it, we still had all the things that you have in a traditional shoot. We had, we still had to hit our marks. We still had to do all of that. And I guess the challenge is, as you say, making it look natural.
Yeah. And Adam, it's like the movie at the moment is like completely anti-Hollywood. You have a movie for a young audience. It's PG-13 in US, and at the same time you had the idea to make this kind of movie which is so funny at the beginning, and it's like what every boy wants to do, and you really enjoy it, and then it's gonna turn into an extremely sad and touchy movie. I mean, to bring this to the cinemas for teenagers is a big risk. Were you sure that it's gonna work? Or?
Oh no! I mean, we made this with 20th Century Fox, and they're the studio that makes the X-Men movies and big superhero entertainment. And we set out to make a movie that was very grounded, that was very real, and like you said, if any of us had superpowers, what would we do? We'd unfortunately probably not save the world right away. We'd screw around and we'd have some fun and get a little wild. So, and the idea that it is so grounded and so character driven, and it starts in a very kind of small, intimate place, and then I hope that we earn the ability as the film goes on to get into a very large world and a large palette. So very anti-Hollywood, but it's done very well in Hollywood, and I'm glad they made it with us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we love Hollywood. And they didn't give us a lot of money to make it, so it's all up on the screen.
Yeah, and it looks a lot more expensive than it really was. Ich denke mir, zu dem Film gibt es bestimmt einige Fragen oder auch gerne mal positive Reaktionen. Traut euch, wir freuen euch, die beiden sind da und nützt es aus. Irgendjemand? Wir sehen es hier ganz schlecht von hier hinten. Okay, ja.
It looks like there is an amazing amount of stunt work. Do you have, was there a particular stunt that was really complicated to set up, and do you have a favorite stunt that you pulled off?
Did you do any stuff? Well, I'll just say the flying was really hard to pull off, and we really set out to show flying in a different way than anybody seen it in movies before. So there were wild rigs, and really we did it very unconventionally, but we really wanted as much in camera as possible. So the flying was something that we really had to work out, and I'm really proud of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. More specifically, yes. I mean, it was incredibly challenging. We did a lot of wire work, and probably the most difficult stunt that I did happens in about 3/4 of a second on the screen, and it's when you see like Casey's falling to her death, and the door of the car rips off, and it all happens in an instant. And then she's pulled out of the car. But we actually, I mean, I was up on a wire, and then the rig was over here, and it was all green screen. But I was sort of, you know, maybe 10 feet up in the air, or 15 feet up in the air, and they had to swoop me in towards the car, and I had to time it perfectly and be leaning forward at the right angle, and then I had to plant my feet on the car as the wire stopped pulling me in, and then reach my hand around in front of the camera. And that was all. It was just so difficult. It was quite tricky. So yeah, working with the wires was a challenge.
When you did your first flying tests, this scene where the one guy was already great in flight, this looks like it has been fun. Yeah. Any more questions?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Describe that moment when you knew the film was a go, when you got a green light, and then what do you think was the hook that made that happen?
It was actually a hard film to get the green light for because it was so anti-studio. And but actually the process went really quite quickly once I sold the movie to Fox, and we started doing so. It was a new director, really gifted guy, Josh Trank, and this was his first film, and he hadn't really even been on a film set before. He had done a short that went viral. And we did a bunch of projects that he and I, camera tests, things that we could kind of present to the studio. This is what it's going to feel like. This is what it's going to look like. And we were also meeting actors, because part of the success of the movie we really believed was going to be in finding the right actors who could be in this world, and trained actors, and really gifted people. So yeah, it was great. Actually, when we got the green light, it was just 5 months after we first sold the script to Fox, and they said that the good news is we're making a movie. The bad news is we're giving you this amount of money, and you're shooting it in Cape Town, South Africa, and you have 8 weeks to prep it and 9 weeks to shoot it. So it was Cape Town up there for Seattle, Washington. So I felt great, and I thought, wow, we've got a heavy road ahead of us. I was very happy.
With more money, you wouldn't have probably the freedom to let the movie end like this.
Oh, no. It was great because we were a small budget movie for the studio, so we were able to do things. We were able to break the rules, both in the storytelling and the way that we made the movie. So we feel really fortunate about that. So yeah.
Da war oben eine Frage. Ja.
Thank you very much for the great movie. I thought the whole time about Carrie from Stephen King. You was inspired from the story?
Say that again, I'm sorry?
Yes, I thought the whole time about Stephen King, Carrie.
Oh, absolutely. He was a huge influence on us in making the film. And actually, a movie that we watched again and again was Stand By Me, because of how natural and realistic that portrayal of those kids were, and obviously in his books. And Carrie comes to mind, obviously, but Stephen King is just a genius in taking things that are very grounded and small town and simple, and things get wacky and crazy in his world. So yes, Stephen King is a god.
Ihr müsst einfach gleich raus. Wir sehen es echt ganz schlecht hier.
Speaking of the story, what do you think that the repercussions of this whole action in Seattle were? I mean, you guys basically destroyed the whole city and everybody was watching. Is this maybe a hint to a sequel as well?
Actually, we are developing a sequel. So yes, yeah. And coincidentally, none of the other actors live, so but yeah, I guess there'll be a major cleanup in Seattle, but I think it'll be off screen, and we're gonna kind of go global with the sequel, and because he can't really go back to the United States probably in Seattle. he's kind of persona non grata at this point.
He's gonna become a monk in Tibet.
I don't know, maybe. It's gonna be fantastic.
Yeah, I wanted to know because there are these two arcs in the film of the two main protagonists, and one sort of turns evil, and the other turns, well, not so evil. And I wanted to know personally, because you're acting as one of the characters, but as a person, did you more connect to your own character or to both characters? And I'd like to know, like, how it changed you to play this character, if it actually did change you, or if it just influenced you in some way.
Um, and was the first part of your question, did I connect with both characters? Did I connect with who I played and then also with Andrew?
What do you think of these, just how they develop? Because the film basically depicts them as real human beings, and not like Aaron Blaine's there and Professor X or something. And yeah, like real bodies.
Yeah, I think, I don't know how much playing Matt changed me. I definitely could identify with both characters and really feel for Andrew, and I cried when I read that in the script, and I did, and yeah, and yeah, but I don't know how much playing Matt changed me, apart from I felt like it was a wonderful gift and it made me a happy human being to be telling that story and to be playing that role. But definitely, I feel like Matt is quite far away from me as a human being. I actually felt it a huge challenge. I felt like it was quite a stretch for me to play him. He's very, I mean, I think basically Matt just has a solid, good heart from the very beginning, but he's just got immaturity and real insecurities and things kind of masking that and getting in the way of that. I think basically he would have ended up being a wonderful guy anyway, but the turn of events act as a catalyst for him growing up, and Matt sort of has to step up. Really, he has to grow up. Yeah, I think it's a. I don't know if it's like people have talked about, is it a coming of age type thing, and I don't think so. I don't think Andrew changes. So he doesn't have a huge arc in terms of growing as a person. He just sort of gets caught in those circumstances and doesn't have the maturity to deal with it. If you get me. Does that answer your question? I don't know. Okay. Yeah.
Any more questions? We don't see it, you just have to talk.
Can you tell us something about the thing in the hole?
All will be revealed in Chronicle 2, maybe.
Or make Chronicle 3 as the prequel.
Yes. No, we wanted the whole. No prequels. Yeah. We wanted the whole to represent something to everyone, and for people to be able to kind of infer what they wanted to believe. But it was obviously something that changed these guys forever, and yeah. But we all have our thoughts, and I think each character had a different way into it in the making of the film. But we want you to think about it and believe in what you want to believe.
I have one more question, because the soundtrack is very extraordinary, and you have David Bowie and all the great music. Who decided and who was working on searching for the soundtrack, and who made this decision? Was it teamwork or was it Josh's?
Yeah, listen, music was a really important part. It's an important part of young people's lives, and since there's no score in the movie, it's just sound effects. Or the source music, it was really acting as the score of this movie. So it was definitely very calculated and placed and thought about. And Josh has amazing taste in music, and we tried lots of different things. But each of those, we wanted new, fresh music, and it takes place in Seattle, so we wanted to reflect that. But all of those music cues really were meant to evoke a passion or a feeling in the film, in the scenes.
This works very well, especially in the scene with Andrew when he puts on his outfit to rap, and it's David Bowie. So at this moment, now the movie is changing, and this was really
Thank you,
very,
David
very
Bowie.
great. Yeah, it's one of the coolest moments in the movie. Any more questions?
Yes.
actually two questions or one question for both of you. Do you have your background in superhero stories, in comic and novel form? So what made you, was this story or this genre new for you, or something you actually wanted to do the whole time, or are you very familiar with the setting?
Okay. I am actually, I've never been like a big comic book fan. Michael B. Jordan, who played Steve, is like a comic book nut. He loves it. But I haven't been. I appreciate them, but I've never collected them or anything. But I do love superhero movies. I'm a real sucker for superhero movies, actually. But what drew me to the project when I first read the script was just that I'd never encountered anything like it as an actor or otherwise. I just thought it was so unique and gripping and real, and I just thought it was such a special piece, and more to do with that rather than the genres that it sort of amalgamates, you know.
I'm also a huge fan of superhero movies. I haven't made one, but I felt like this was the kind of movie that I could really get involved with because it was about character and it was about real people and story, and you kind of develop it through that way. I'm a fan of comics, but not like a fanatic, but I do love them, and the superhero movies and the whole genre is definitely something that I'm excited about when they come out, but I never had the opportunity to do one of my own.
One last question.
Would you sing price tag again?
Would I sing price tag again? It's not about the price tag.
We're probably going to get charged for that.
Wir sind jetzt gleich noch außen. Die beiden signieren gerne und thank you very much for coming. Thank you for not giving the movie the test screening.